All right, Brendon Anthony, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks so much for having me on. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain about some stuff that I think will help a lot of folks understand basically that your organization even exists. I mean, unfortunately, maybe folks in the industry know, but outside of that, may not be aware of what all's going on. But now, me and you met on a Zoom call that we were both a part of. I think was discussing something about the COVID relief stuff and the arts and how it was affecting them or what have you, right?
Yeah, we met on a Zoom that was centered around getting relief to any number of kind of small businesses that were affected by COVID. At that time, we were relying heavily on people like you. And I got to say a tremendous thank you to you personally
Oh,
for
thanks.
taking on so many individual cases that you did for me. And I know you did for many, many others as well. But yeah, that's where we got together. And we were in that kind of big conversation writ large about how we sort of uh, get relief of a ton of different kinds to small business and individuals who needed it.
Yeah, well, you sent. I mean, a lot of the folks that you sent to me, they certainly spoke highly of you. So that
That was nice.
goes a
Thank
long
you.
way for what kind of job you've been doing. For so now you're the director of the Texas Music Office.
That's correct.
So and uh, one of the things I love your Instagram bio. It's just so short and sweet, right? Anderson's dad, director of Texas Music Office, proud Aggie, 1999, recovering musician,
That's all true.
right? So, well,
Straight to
tell
the
me a little
point.
bit about your family then, because you kind of led with that. So, on your
Well,
bio.
I'm Anderson's dad. She's my 6-year-old daughter, and she is a thriving Montessori student in Austin, and is into music and into her friends and a lot of other stuff, as she should be. So she keeps us very, very busy.
So now, where are you originally from?
College Station.
Oh,
I
okay.
grew up in College Station, and my dad taught at Texas A&M, so we were there for that reason, and grew up. And my brother and I ended up both going to A&M.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah,
Mhm.
you probably, if you graduated in '99, would you start about '95?
That's right. I graduated
Yeah.
high school in '95.
Okay, yeah. So you missed me. I'd already been down there and gone by the time you came for a few years. So,
They were still talking about you.
well, I'm sure they are probably looking for those library fees or some or parking tickets or
And parking was
whatever.
it was parking for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what something. But now here's an interesting thing that I dug up on you. You for 15 years you toured with a local guy here, Pat Green.
Yeah, that's right. So I was there at kind of the early moments of Pat's career. He'd already done a record with Lloyd Maines, uh, but he was kind of putting a band together of guys who were going to play with him. What turned out to be long term. One of those guys is my roommate who became the drummer. Another was my neighbor who became the guitar player. Uh, I played on most of Pat's records and a whole bunch of records of other people that Lloyd Maines was producing, and then some others. But I toured exclusively with Pat from '96 to 2010.
Oh man, well that had to be kind of exciting. So you, from what I understand, you
Super
played
fun.
on a gold record, and you're a
Yep.
member of the band when he was Grammy Award nominated, correct?
Three Grammy nominations. Lost, I think, two to Johnny Cash and one to Alan Jackson. So, hey, man, just happy to
Hey,
be there at that point.
yeah, that's not if you got to lose somebody, those are not bad guys to lose to. That's for sure.
Still
So,
a good time. Yeah.
so do you have any interesting stories about touring with Pat?
Yeah, but this thing's on
You can
record. So,
share.
well, I saw every square inch of the country with Pat, the contiguous 48, a bunch of fun spots in Europe and elsewhere. And uh, my bottom line from playing with Pat was being a part of that family and being family with him for so long, and to the extent that I still get to go back. And this is all kind of because we're friends and he lets me. I play 10 or 15 shows of them a year and still create some new stories. I remember playing David Letterman with Pat, and what
Oh,
a fun time that was. I think as we've seen kind of the talk show landscape change from what it was when we were growing up, Maybe people don't realize kind of what a big deal that was to, to do the Tonight Show with Letterman. But the fact that we got to do that is something they'll never take away. It was a really fun day. It was a bigger story because Robin Williams was the only guest, and we spent all day hanging out in Robin Williams' dressing room with him, and all afternoon hanging with Paul Schaefer in the band, and then did the show. And yeah, what a day! I mean, a lot of stories around that, but that was one of the more interesting days we had with the Pat world. There were many others. We were on tour with some of the biggest names in country and pop. Did major tours nationwide with folks everyone's heard of, and just really saw the world and tried to grow up a little along the way. Didn't succeed always.
Well, I think a lot of us are still working on that. But
Yes, sir.
So now you play with the mandolin, the guitar, the banjo, and the fiddle.
Yeah, the fiddle was my first entree into the Pat band and others. I grew up classical violin. Kept calling it a violin because I didn't want to insult fiddle players. And then I picked up those other instruments to just kind of fill in gaps in the live show. Really, I could kind of approximate them on a record maybe, but I'm neither a mandolin player nor a banjo player nor any other kind of instrument player. But I can play those things a little bit. I can make the right noises on them sometimes. But violin and fiddle was kind of my main entryway into the whole thing.
Yeah, I've got, you don't see the banjo used that much anymore. And I have a theory, and it's all Roy Clark's fault. Because once you watched him play it on Hee Haw every day, you're like, I'll never stand a chance. I'll never play that good, right?
Earl Scruggs, Roy Clark. There's no sense.
Yeah. So it's like, let's just pick up a guitar.
Yeah, or put 6 strings on a banjo, call it a banjo-tar, and just do what Keith Urban does, and that's fine too.
Well,
it's just I mean, you're kind of trying to make the same noises, but it's definitely not the same thing.
Right. So, and in fact, you played with Pat not too long ago up at Billy Bob's, right? Or did I misconstrue that?
Yeah, I did. My running joke with Pat and the guys, and they have it back with me, is that if the marquee's big enough or it's close enough to my bed, I may just show up. And so I hadn't played Billy Bob's in a while, and I just called Pat and his road manager Brad and said, "Hey, I'm free tonight. I feel like coming to do it at Billy Bob's thing. But, come on." So that was just a couple of weeks ago. Got to go up and play. It was a really fun show. Pat did a great job. The band he's got with him now is fantastic. And it was a great night. I had a really fun time, and then headed back home in the morning, and they went somewhere else. And that's kind of my deal. I'm going to end up playing ACL live with them in April, in Green Hall in April, and they will have been any number of other places, and I will have just kind of been home. So that's kind of my deal now.
Well, so now, what's the most intimidating place you ever played? Because I've got some musician friends, and there's just certain places, the history or something about it just is, you just know you're, I mean, you guys are playing something, somewhere every night almost, but then when you get to one of these places, it's just different, and it's different. And what was the most intimidating place you ever played?
Well, because I was a really arrogant, just kind of ignorant kid as a musician, I think probably my intimidation level came more from not my knowledge of how cool these places were, but by my kind of odd sense when I'd seen other players play, maybe the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo when it was at the Astrodome, or Red Rocks or Madison Square Garden, or any of these other places we ended up playing. I always felt a sense of awe that I was standing in the same place, maybe that someone I'd seen and respected had played. So the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, the first time we got to do that, when it was actually at the Astrodome, I felt like I just landed on the moon. And then we opened for Willie Nelson at the Ryman, the real Ryman, not the stage at the Grand Ole Opry after they moved it, but the actual Ryman Auditorium, which people are familiar with in Nashville. And standing on that stage with Pat, my music family, opening for Willie Nelson. Again, it's a little bit out of body. And the only thing I think you can do in moments like that is just make sure you look around the room as much as possible and try to soak some of it up, because it feels like, the bigger, the more important stages like that, the more of a blur it becomes for some reason.
Yeah. Now, this is a lot of musicians and other creative folks have told me this, but is there a particular song that you really loved playing or you really liked that maybe nobody else really liked or whatever? There's a lot of them have that, and then it's kind of also the flip side. They have songs that people really, really love, but then it's like, this was not. I never thought whenever I wrote this song or did this song, I was gonna be doing this the rest of my life and tied to the song.
There's another question altogether right there. Yeah, for sure.
But either way, right?
Well, one we did that I felt like I personally got really lucky to be a part of and to play the part that I eventually ended up playing on it was a song that Pat did in the late 90s called Carry On. So I did the fiddle parts in that. We were being coached as much as or more than produced by Lloyd Maines at that point. And he got this fiddle solo out of me that I don't know where it came from, and I don't know how it ended up on tape, but it did, and I'm super grateful for that. And that's still a song where, given the passage of time, should probably just annoy the hell out of me because I've heard it so many times, but I never get tired of it. Another one was kind of a hit that Pat had called Wave on Wave. It went through such an evolution before it became the radio single that it became. And it was a really interesting and frustrating process to get to that point. And a lot of people don't know that story, and that's fine. But the fact that it came out and I ended up on both versions, and we went through all that we went through to get it to that point, and all the people that were in the room to make that happen, like Tony Brown and Doug Morris, excuse me, and Pat and all these other people who worked on it. I'm still really proud of that song every time I hear it, because I know what a monumental thing it was for us to get that done. I've played on a couple songs with people like Walt Wilkins or people like Willie Nelson that it doesn't matter. Like if those are songs that devotees to people like that even know, I'm still incredibly proud and grateful to be a part of them. And sometimes there was crossover. I got to do a couple of really cool songs with Pat and Willie Nelson, and that was just I could have just hung it up at that point. And Lyle Lovett was another one, and I grew up in the shadow and in awe of Lyle Lovett, and getting to play on a record that he recorded on was just an amazing thing. I have a list of things like that. I can answer that question all day, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna shift gears on you a little bit.
Sure.
So how do you end up, you're playing music and having a great time, and then how do you end up being the director of the Texas Music Office?
Well, there's nothing to it. So I I was, like I said, with Pat full-time from 96 to 2010. And in the years leading up to 2010, I just knew, I wasn't exactly sure what it meant, but I knew it was kind of time for a change. I didn't want to be in the lifestyle like I was for that long, many years past that point. And so I started looking around for something else. And I had some friends who were kind of in tech and ended up forming and being a part of the formation of a startup in 2010 called Music One Live. It has become what is now One Live Media. And I ended up running artist relations and fulfillment logistics operations for that company, as well as in bringing in half the money to start the company. Initially, we were ticketing. We did a whole bunch of stuff in the kind of tech and music side of the world. And that was very much startup. I was working 24 hours a day on that. I helped set up fulfillment operations in Los Angeles and London and Dallas and Austin. So I was overseeing a tremendous project. Some of our clients included Beyonce, Willie Nelson, and many others. It was a big operation. I had some friends who along that time were very active in politics, worked in politics, worked for many different politicians who were on the scene at that time. And one of them, Attorney General Abbott, ran for governor and was elected. And some of my friends became chiefs of staff and other positions. And I was asked by a group of those people to consider the job, and then was ultimately appointed to that job by Governor Abbott in 2015.
Great. So what does the Texas Music Office actually do?
We're an economic development agency, statewide agency that oversees growth and support of the Texas music industry. So we function on a number of levels. We're a clearinghouse of information for the industry. We're an agency that operates over 30 satellite offices at this point. We'll be up to nearly 40 at the end of this year. We're an advocate for the music industry, both federally, as you and I intersected on, and at State House. We are the expert on the Texas music industry from an economic standpoint, and any number of ancillary projects. We operate a Texas Music Trails program. We operate a radio program. We still run the Texas Music Industry Database, which serves as that clearinghouse, which houses over 15,000 listings. We're a connector and an advocate and a support system empowered at the very top levels of state government with absolutely no peer agency in the country.
So how, I read something about a community, music-friendly communities program.
That's right.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that.
So the Music Friendly Communities program essentially calls on communities to support the local music industry communities by creating a clone office of ours within city government, an advisory board, a database that mirrors ours. They've got to sign a memorandum of understanding with our office, and then they go to work with that framework to learn about, listen to, and support their local music industry community. Like I said, there are over 30 at this point offices that exist around the state, communities large and small, as big as Dallas, as small as Lindale, but all important on a scale at every place they exist. Again, we're the only state in the country that has a network like this of offices like these.
And so how do you see the music industry? Well, I mean, you've been in it for quite a while now. How have you seen it transitioned from, say, in Texas particularly, since when you started to kind of now, and what are some of the good things, bad things, that sort of
well,
thing?
we don't sell things anymore like we used to. We don't monetize intellectual property the same way we used to. So that's going to be an ongoing struggle that lasts through this generation of the music industry. Now is the time to advocate for the fair and equitable remuneration for people who are creators of intellectual property, because we're not selling CDs and those deals don't work the same way. So that's all changed from sort of a physical sales-based, transactional-based economy to one of mostly streaming and almost free use of created works in the music industry space. Touring has changed. Their logistics have changed if you're on the road. So the argument that, hey, you just go make all your money on the road isn't as valid as people think it is or was a few years ago. So a number of challenges facing our music industry. What's always been important is that as music industry professionals, if we can work to own every bit of our business, our small business along the way, the better off we'll be. So we counsel that. We work with trade organizations to make sure that the fight is getting fought on every level, to make sure that people don't steal stuff and that people pay for the stuff they want to use.
Sure. So now, back in the old days, right, you would get a musician would get a record contract, and the record company would sell the records, make a bunch, spend you around more or less promoting the record, and then all the money was made off the record primarily, or a substantial amount. And that's not the case anymore. So how is it overall the music industry as lucrative as it was, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Or
well, interestingly enough,
yeah,
I think that's a good question. I think interestingly enough, almost as much money is being made. The major labels have consolidated so much and have asserted so much power over the digital streaming services. They make as much or more money than they were making. The problem is it's for a select small percentage of artists that exist under the umbrellas of those major labels. The major labels held so much sway over Spotify, for one example, and other streaming services, that they essentially control the profits of companies like that, who have always struggled to post a profit, if at all. So such a small number of people can exist on a label, on a major label system. Most people aren't represented by them. Those labels do not take the time to develop new talent. They don't take the time to represent new talent or promote new talent. You have to be very nearly a proven commodity, or have a stake in the label yourself to even be a success on them. So those labels only represent the top, 1% or even smaller percentage of the industry at large, but they're making, the bulk of the money, and they're holding a gun to the heads of the digital service providers who need their content to even be considered a viable platform. So a lot of money being made, not a lot of money by a lot of people being made. Does that make sense?
So you think it's even more consolidated? So a fewer number of people are making the same amount of money that was being made, say, 30 years ago.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
I just don't think those labels are taking the time to promote or develop the talent of a lot of artists. Like, you're not seeing a label have 30 or 40 artists on a roster. They just don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
not as many people through the gates of the majors as there used to be, and the gatekeeper role of the labels is just different than it was 30 years ago as well.
I mean, to me, that seems a bit short-sighted on their part, and really leaves their flank open to a upstart coming along and finding great talent out there and exposing the world to it, especially with social media now. I mean, YouTube. I mean, here's a guy in an office.
Well, the interesting
40,000
part of
people.
that too. The interesting part of that too, I thought David Macias from 30 Tigers did a great rundown of this very concept not too long ago on Twitter. I would look that up if I were y'all.
Yeah.
60,000 works getting submitted to Spotify every day. So, maybe there is great stuff, and there is great stuff getting released every day. The problem is there's so much white noise. Who's going to champion what? So, you're not in a monoculture anymore, but you're also not seeing a lot of representation or of a lot of mid-level talent. It's just an interesting new kind of paradigm. You use the word short-sighted. This is the same industry that was short-sighted enough to wave off the guys who invented the MP3 as, bothersome disruptors. And look what that did to the industry. It's attributed to Sean Parker. I'm not sure if he said it or not. He was like, "Hey, you want to buy stock in a Tower Records today?" I don't think so. But that's it's an industry that's short-sighted as any other. When they're making money hand over fist, why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it until it's just implodes.
So where do you see the largest opportunity for a small person to just make a living, let's say, mid-level talent or starting out or however?
I'd say the largest opportunity for someone who's looking to make a living is to own everything they can and be as smart as humanly possible about how the business of music works. Now is not the time to say I'll empower other people to do these things for me for a percentage, because there's not enough dollars to make a percentage matter. You're not going to make a living if you're giving most of what you own away. And unless you're smart enough to do all your own admin, all of your own self-promotion, all of your own self-creation, you're going to be behind in this business. I know that's not what artists want to hear. I just don't think we're in a place right now where an artist can afford to be merely an artist. I just think we're in a business right now that you've got to understand how to form relationships in a lot of different key verticals, including PROs, independent digital distribution, trying to figure out who the tastemakers are to get your works playlisted, forming strategic partnerships at strategic times, and paying only for those times that you need them, not paying a percentage of your gross from a 365 a day year. You've got to be smart about it. The opportunity is in your work ethic.
So one of the other things that I noticed when I was reading about the Texas Music, kind of back up a little bit, the Texas Friendly Communities Program, it said something, excuse me, I need to backtrack on that. Your organization, the Texas Music Office, I read that it interfaces with higher education music programs and a real world music business opportunities. And what does that look like, your interface with higher education? I kind of butchered that question, sorry. But
No, it's fine. We do our best to identify what kind of programs prepare students to go out into the world as industry professionals. And as much as we can, we try to talk to those programs about what real world preparedness actually looks like. Coming out of an academic bubble and being expected to perform in a professional environment, that's a big leap. On the other side of that too, not everyone can play professional saxophone. So, we go to talk to these programs quite a bit. We try to share information with them. We try to share information with students who are looking at respective programs to see what might be a good fit for them. All that information is available on the website for people to do their own research, but we've gone as far as to take the chancellor of the A&M system out to talk to West Texas A&M University, just by way of an example, to laud their program of creating partnerships with Belmont in Nashville to get their kids better educated, real world educated, and to form professional networks that could benefit them when they went out to work in the music industry writ large. That's the deal. We have to, as educational institutions, produce a workforce that can go work in an industry, or we're going to keep outsourcing these things.
so what do you think some of the gaps in some of the curriculums are? So people roll out, with a music degree, and then they expect to, make a living with, playing music or whatever. What are they missing in the way of their education to enable them to do that?
Well, if I had a magic wand, I'll answer that. But if I had a magic wand, I'd start with all the state schools like UT and A&M, and I'd say, look, as part of your business program, you should offer a music business or a music entertainment degree, or at very least, you should offer elective classes into those, so that people understand that there's an application for them if they want to be a part of the music industry and they don't want to play an instrument, they don't want to be a lead singer. They can still work in it. A lot of people just don't see it as an option when they go to college. A lot of people think that going to college is the antidote to being a musician. I mean, a lot of parents certainly think that. I think that people can go to school, become educated music industry professionals, and do it the same way anybody else does when they go work for Anderson Consulting or any number of businesses that they want to go join after they get a business finance economics degree. But we should be offering those types of curriculum to students who are at the very least interested in what's out there, and we just don't do that. There's not a music business school at UT, and that makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah, I certainly can see that. And as a matter of fact, it's funny you mentioned it. When I was at A&M, one of my favorite classes was, and I think it was brand new. The guy that taught it was also the conductor of the local symphony, and it was Business of the Symphony. And that was the name
cool.
of the class. It was an elective, but nonetheless, that was very enlightening about the business aspects of the symphony, and it really helped me a lot in understanding not only the symphony. It was probably my first introduction to it, but also the way nonprofits also worked from a business standpoint. And it was, I got a lot. I got as much of an education about business from that class as I did, many of my other ones.
True. And if your interest lies in going to work in the music industry, but you're just not maybe naturally gifted or haven't had exposure to an instrument or vocal lessons or something, what I always find fascinating when I go out and talk to people who are looking to get involved, most of the people who work in the music industry have nothing to do with the stage. They don't stand on stage, they don't sing, they don't play. The people that are on that stage are just very much the tip of that iceberg, and for our industry to work, there are literally thousands of other jobs that need to be done first, during, and after. And we need to prepare those people, or at least give people exposure to the idea that those jobs are out there. And we don't do a very good job of that in Texas.
So, and probably in most everywhere else, maybe with the exception.
Well, I mean, my purview is Texas, so I'm gonna lecture Texas. But I mean, I think I think probably our best examples of, teaching people about how to be music industry professionals, the tip of that game would probably be Belmont, and in Nashville. The fact that we don't have something not the same, but our version of, in a place like Austin or a place like Denton or a place like Dallas or a place like Houston, or a place like San Antonio, is kind of odd. Coming back to San Antonio really, really quick, I have to give a shout out to the work of Dr. Stan Renard down there, who's actively trying to build a program like that in San Antonio. But we need 5 more of him, 10 more of him doing that kind of work around the state.
So, talking about the community program, what's the best way for a community to get started in that?
They just contact us. We have staff that absorbs those requests and reaches out in a very timely manner and starts those communities on that journey. Because we set that threshold for certification so high, it can take months, it can take years in some cases. But we have staff that is all over it, and they walk cities hand in hand through the process and show up for them. So all you have to do is reach out through the office, through the site, or call us up. We'll add them to the process sheet and get them going.
So yeah, I have a number of friends that are professional musicians. In fact, one of them, they're a tribute band, but his father had made a run at a career playing music a number of years ago, and he got signed by the record label like the day too late. The lead singer had signed up for the Air Force, and so that was kind of the end of it. And he'd taken a couple of years off work to actually tour and build their all across the South and build up their their recognition. And then later in life, he got with his sons. They started this band, and it was doing really well. And he had even retired from his main job. And then the level of professionality that had to be done when you're doing these shows, one show after another, and it needs to be the same way. We need a lot of choreographed, not much ad-libbing, that sort of thing, really struck him kind of wrong. And so it ended up kind of blowing the thing up. They, he left, but they continue to operate. But I was wondering what kind of misconceptions like that do maybe, a lot of aspiring musicians have they may not be thinking about.
I think they've got a ton, but I think it's a career that just teaches you things along the way. Some people in any walk of life, them, just seem, preternaturally gifted at one thing or another.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us aren't like that. Most of us learn on the job a little bit and just find their way. A lot of people that I was always mostly jealous of, again, when I was younger and ignorant and arrogant, that kind of thing. I always looked at my friends whose parents, moms or dads, had been successful musicians with a lot of envy, because yes, they had a lot of connections. Most were not handed anything, but they had a lot of connections. And most importantly, they knew a lot of things that you weren't supposed to do. So, I think young artists struggle a lot when they're coming up with the idea that, this is supposed to be fun all the time. And it is fun a lot of the time to be a professional musician, but it's a really hard job. And when you get to a particular level, you either hit that level and you bounce off it and you go back to the bars where you grew up playing, and either you're happy about that or spiteful about it. Doesn't really matter. That's where you are. Or you make a choice, or a choice is made for you, and you grow up and you get to become a professional, and you start doing what professionals do in any walk of life. They do their job. They don't disrupt the natural order of things. They understand there's a hierarchy and a business out there that they're participating in now, and they go to work. A lot of people, when they go to work, that kind of rubs them the wrong way. I've heard multiple people, and I probably said it myself, that, man, this just became a job, so I had to get out. Well, I think a lot of people would love to do music in some way, shape, or form for a job. So, I think the ones that survive are the ones that take it seriously, the ones that treat it as soberly as they're comfortable or possible doing, that don't let the lifestyle become the job, and the ones who understand that this, like every other business we're a part of, is as much a people business as it is a talent business. And if you're going through your professional career deciding that your talent is more important than how people perceive you, well, that business is gonna teach you something someday. So, people will give you a hand up or they'll give you a slap down just as easily. It's a big networking world. There's a ladder to climb for certain. I think being grateful for the work that you get as a professional musician comes in handy too. Look, we all reach a point where we've got to do things more professionally. That came to us in the Pat Green Band when we started touring with major artists who were putting on the biggest tours in the world. I'm talking about Kenny Chesney and Dave Matthews and any number of the dozen other people like that we toured with. There's no room for messing around until it's time to mess around. There's no room, for being the jackass that everybody hears from at the wrong time of day. That person gets asked to go home. It's just how it works.
Yeah. One of the, some of the folks that I've really admired from a business standpoint in the music industry is a guy like Jimmy Buffett, right? I mean,
Sure.
maybe 1-2 hits. I'm not even sure.
Come Monday in 1972.
Yeah. And then a handful. And then the Margarita, he has some, but he's able, certainly not, not a huge chart success throughout his career. I would say certainly nothing to be, but compared to the amount of money that I think the guy's been able to put together from a business standpoint.
But he may be our very first example of one of the first more widespread lifestyle brands.
Yeah.
So, if you want to look at Buffett like that, music's the front door, but the lifestyle brand's the mansion. So, he will walk you in with the music, and you may come to him for the music, but then you'll find that he's speaking to you because you want to be on a beach living that life. So, he's a lifestyle brand for sure.
Yeah, and and then if you go back even further than that, what was it? Jimmy Dean, right? Nobody even knows that. He was had a hit, right? That's how he got the sausage company going, I guess.
And Buck Owens was darn near a billionaire because he bought records or radio stations. Everybody's more complex than the one thing we know them for typically.
Right.
In music, you can become a lifestyle brand for certain. And people want to, once people hear from you in a certain way, if you keep giving them things that keep feeding them in, they'll typically buy it from you once they're bought in.
Go back to what we're talking about as far as building a brand, doing something. Is there anybody right now that nobody's maybe heard of here in Texas that's beginning to kind of do that, do something, do it right, that may not be mainstream or very well known, that you're aware of? Is there anybody you can think of?
Man, I got a few, sure. My friend Saul Paul is definitely one worth looking at and giving attention to. For Saul, that means more about giving back than creating his own brand, but he does both to great effect and to other people's benefits. So he's definitely worth checking out. There's a young guy named William Beckman coming up who's fantastic. People should check out. I really do think he's kind of one of the next big things out there. I would have said the same thing about Parker McCollum 5 years ago. There are people who are poised to make it and are working with the right folks who have through lines into centers like the publishing and label world in Nashville and LA that can get you there. That's extremely important. Let's see. Man, there are a bunch. Texas is going to do some stuff. There's a reason that when the Grammy nominees are released every year, Texas has more than any other state every time.
Really? I didn't even realize.
We're always building stuff. Yeah, it's worth a look.
Yeah. So another thing, as far as musicians starting out, either a band or a single musician or whatever, economically speaking, is there any like low hanging fruit that they should just be sure to take advantage of? Is it playing a bunch of gigs? Is it merchandising from day one? What are some things that you might have in the way of advice for some kind of maybe not completely starting out from scratch, but out there trying to get this thing where it pays for itself and I can make a living?
Yeah, I definitely think those people who are in that phase should write a lot. They should write with as many different people as they can.
Mm-hmm.
They should form songwriting relationships, and they should form those relationships with some of the groups I mentioned earlier. In Texas, we're really fortunate to have representatives from TuneCore local and BMI local. Not all the PROs, not all the independent digital distribution companies have full-time representatives here. So the ones that do, you should look up for sure. So you should form those relationships as early as you can. I don't think that touring is a bad thing. I think people are so anxious to take those major next steps in their career that typically, as I've seen, they make the wrong decisions early. There's absolutely no need to give away a bunch of percentages that you don't own yet. And if someone's willing to take 15% of nothing or a couple bucks to help you get a bunch of gigs, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the person you want to be working with anyhow. So, I mean, if you're willing to do the hard work of booking your own stuff and owning 100% of that revenue, and to be smart about the merchandise you create so that you own it, you're not giving too much away to produce it. Take every single step to own the things you create. Don't give anything away too early. There's absolutely no reason that a lot of bands in the low to mid career level need some sort of overarching 15% entitled management company, unless there is clear demonstrable value from an outside third party that is going to increase your bottom line. What is the upside? So I see a lot of mistakes getting made. I see a lot of breakups happening not too long after these kind of relationships get made. So my general advice, of course, it can't apply to every single scenario out there, every single person out there. Own all your stuff as long as possible. Be smart about how you do your accounting. Be smart about how you produce your merchandise. Be smart about how you book your own gigs. Don't get discouraged about small money gigs that tend to grow something. There is no overnight success in the music industry. None. There is absolutely no case unless you go on a game show. And only a very, 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 very tiny percentage of those people actually amount to anything resembling a career that they own. Let me underscore that. Just do it right, do it slow, own everything.
So what are some ways that that somebody can make a living in the music industry that maybe aren't particularly thought of, things that aren't either done or thought of or what have you? And we kind of touched on a little of it, but earlier. But
well, I do think when you asked, what are some of the biggest opportunities, there's an opportunity to think for yourself and own your own stuff. Again, I'll reiterate that. Artists are all unique. Once you start finding your fan base and you want to engage with them a little bit more, be actually authentic and dynamic on social media. I know that's probably an old person sounding thing to say. People in the fan sphere want to actually see what you're like when you're not playing music. That is a thing that people use social media for. Twitter's for brief ideas, Twitter's for breaking news, and Twitter's for a lot of awful, terrible things. Instagram's for photo content that's compelling and rich, whatever that means.
right.
TikTok's for this or that and the other. Figure out what they all mean and go to work interacting with your fan base in a way that makes sense and that's authentic to you. That might be an old person thing to say, but I think that they're not gonna come to you. You've got to go to them quite a bit. I'd say be kind of ingenious about how you interact with your fans. Give them something more than just your music. I'm good friends with a guy named Rob Baird, and if you're not familiar with his music, go listen to it. It's really good. He's a dear friend of mine. What he shows his fans a lot of times is music, sure. A lot of times is quote unquote on brand, but oftentimes it's, Rob's a great cook. Rob's a great chef. He's showing people what it's like to be with him in the kitchen. And during COVID, Rob decided to turn his kitchen into a pizza kitchen and was cooking for tons of people. And that was kind of part of his brand doing that. He's not afraid to show people that he does stuff other than, do the music thing. So take time to do that. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to show yourself off to other people. You've honestly, once you've joined the music ranks, some people are a little bit more mercurial, some and private than others. But a lot of us, we have to show a lot of ourselves in order to be fully responsive to a fan base. So don't be afraid to do that.
So now, are you familiar with the NFTs or the non-fungible tokens at all?
I mean, I'll say this: I'm as familiar with them as the next guy who's not completely into it. Right. What I am finding interesting. I'll answer the general question this way. What I am very interested in is finding a piece of tech that makes a piece of intellectual property transferable from buyer to seller and to no one else. And so if there is a way within the NFT world that a verification of a piece of intellectual property sale or transfer can be sacrosanct, can be something that's absolutely undeniable. I own something, you want it, you buy it from me, it's not mine anymore, it's now yours, and here's what proves it. I like that part of that world a lot. That's referred to as blockchain tech, and all the tech that goes along with that. Artists have tried to use that for a variety of applications up to this point. I think that's promising. I think that's interesting. As far as cryptocurrency goes, as far as the NFT in and of itself, I think as far as expanding the idea of market value and a buyer and seller actively deciding on the fly or based on market value perception what is and what isn't valuable, and man, you've got me. But I do think the idea of finding something that can limit the transfer of one piece of intellectual property is really interesting. That takes us back to, I sell you a CD, you can't legally reproduce it and sell it on your own, right? I think that's interesting, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get your take on the whole space, and I kind of, obviously brand new tech, how's it going to apply to any and all, business ventures? But some of the things that come to my mind are, kind of like, I think you could theoretically, possibly, take the kind of value that, say, trading cards or comic books have, sure, and transfer it to music, in some way, shape, or form with that technology. I mean, because you got to think, if this technology was around when George Strait started out, right? I mean, just a home video of him playing somebody's birthday party, back in the 80s or something, would, Lord only knows what that would be worth, even if it was 1 through 1,000 and you had a number.
You're 100% right, but two comments to that.
Yeah,
I remember an incident from my childhood. Not this isn't super deep, but okay, an incident from my childhood that it rings a bell. I was not super big into trading cards, but I had a few, like everybody else did back in the day. And for people who are much younger than me that are listening, those were pictures of active players or former players in, let's say, Major League Baseball. It had all their stats on the back. And if you had a rookie card of someone who was famous and it was unblemished or undamaged, that could be worth a lot of money. I can't remember this wasn't like a Ken Griffey card or anything, but it was valuable, maybe a Tony Gwynn or something. And I looked it up and it said this card was worth $350, right? In tops or flea or whatever it was. And so, I had it in a plastic thing. So I went back to the card shop and I said, I'd like $350, please. And the guy said, I'll give you $5 for that.
Right.
So here's my issue with all of it. If the market decides in some theoretical way that something's valuable, well, who fulfills the promise on that? I know that if I take $1 back to the treasury and I want a certain number of pieces of receipt for that or change for that, we have an agreed upon piece of currency at that point that's backed up by a Federal Reserve. So I understand currency is backed up by a national monetary system or an international monetary system because I'm old. Not to say that NFTs aren't going to have that kind of value. I tend to still see them because, again, I'm old, as that trading card I tried to go cash out. Yeah. There's a perceived value of this thing. I take it back. Someone's not going to give me that value. I just lost a lot of value, a whole lot of equity in something that I perceived was valuable. So I'm not completely sold on it yet. I may never be. Someone will have to explain it to me better. The other point you made is if someone had a video of George playing in 1982, what would that be worth? My response to that is, once George got done suing them for using something that technically he owned, very, very little. So who owns that piece of property? Does that video of George that gets sold become the owned property of anyone else? I would say not in court, because George still owns that. That's his work being used to generate revenue for someone else. Once George's attorneys got through with that person, George would own the upside to that. So but I think long story short on that, we're still trying to figure a lot of that out.
Well, yeah, no, it's clearly not defined at this point for sure. And so, but the thought is it's going to get sorted out, and somebody's going to find a way to monetize this in a way that makes some sense. And it wasn't so much that I was talking about his actual intellectual, but this is the interesting thing about the non-fungible token. He can still play the same songs, he can play the same thing, but you're able to attach a specific video and then number it out. So he still owns the content, but you're the guy that has, like when he first performed it, the number one.
I see.
And then George would then sell that back when he was broke, as a package to some people just to help him back when he needed the money probably more than he does now, right? And then
that's cool.
Yeah, and then somebody would then potentially invest in that, which let's face it, it's going to be just like Beanie Babies. Some of these things are going to be go through the roof and be great, but a lot of them aren't. And but it would get people. I think it does. It could potentially do two things. One is it gets people more attached to an artist, because let's face it, if I pay $100 for George Strait's first whatever, I'm watching everything he does. I'm rooting for this guy to get big, right? And and then it also gives at an early stage potentially an influx of speculative, basically capital, but for the artist necessarily it wouldn't be speculative.
But now, did you know this, that there are companies out right now that are allowing you to invest in the new original works and artists just like that? So you can now buy into fractional pieces of ownership and a catalog of an artist who's now creating it.
Yeah. So
two separate marketplaces for that. There's obviously the marketplace that's gotten huge right now when you're buying legacy catalogs for $250 million, like we see all the time. Sure. We've seen companies like Roundhill, create these essentially what resemble REITs, real estate investment. I have a train behind me, sorry. So you see these companies that are generating these huge funds, investment funds and publishing, but you're also seeing groups that allow you to invest in an artist's newly created work. And that's kind of interesting stuff too. Let's bring my friend Rob Baird back into it. Rob's going back into the studio, folks. If you'd like, I could use a little bit of extra capital to help finish making this record. I propose to do 16 songs. Here they are. I'll open the marketplace bidding at, a fourth of each song, $4,000 a piece. and we'll make sure that you get a fourth of this song, just like you helped write it.
Mm-hmm.
And when things pan out, that kind of thing. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, certainly be a good way to fund say the recording of an album and things like that. I would think.
It's more it's more of a perceived traditional way to quote unquote invest in an artist.
Yeah,
because I hear that term all the time. Is I want to invest in your music. Well, there's virtually no way to get any dollars in return on that. So this could be a potential way to do that. Potentially.
Yeah. That's interesting. So is there anybody doing anything from a business standpoint in Texas right now? Not just the artists, you gave me some great folks there, but from a business standpoint in the music space that is worth mentioning and interesting.
Yeah, I mentioned David Macias earlier from 30 Tigers. He's formed a partnership with George Corey at 888 Management that's really interesting. We talk a lot, especially in the country world, about not bridging the gap, I hope so much anymore, but widening the lanes between a place like Texas and a place like Nashville. And George Corey has done a fantastic job of doing that. He's more in the traditional manager or label side as we would have understood it 15 or 20 years ago. He's still doing that work and very well. But he's doing some very interesting stuff. He's had several number ones broken out of the state of Texas. That's very, very cool. There's some more I could mention. They try to keep it a little bit more low key. I mentioned businesses that are doing that kind of fractional ownership in these songs. That's very interesting. There are groups that are working on new ways of protecting live music events by offering more tailored insurance type policies for them, which is really necessary as the live event space continues to grow. So there's some very cool tech and sort of business happening that's sort of changing the way the music industry works, and it's happening out of here. Have not really seen the folks that were doing that kind of fractional ownership thing have kind of mentioned that they would like to be this, but I still haven't seen that massive entrepreneurial music success story out of Texas that we keep touting, given the giant influx of wealth into a place like Austin in particular, and Texas in general. Still kind of waiting to see that. I still think, honestly, we need more bedrock label service, publishing service. We have PRO service here now with the expansion of BMI to Texas. We've got some great representation, like I mentioned, from independent digital distribution with our friends at TuneCore moving here. We just need more and more and more of that kind of bedrock. While you can say that the business is changing and those businesses are becoming archaic, I would disagree. I still think they're very, very, very important, even as the business continues to evolve.
So what excites you the most right now?
Coming out of COVID, frankly, what excites me the most is, we sort of need a level out. We need people to have faith in a calendar that they can book to for a couple years to say we've come out of it. We're not close to that yet. We're getting close. So honestly, coming out of a very dark 20 months, that's just been confusing at best for people. I'm excited about having a couple of really solid calendar years that you can count on, that people can count on to book far out. I'm excited that we may have more businesses moving to the state once things level out as well. I'm excited that we're going to have more satellite offices opening up that'll continue to do good work in local communities around the state. We've got a bright future as an industry space, as an industry center in Texas. We have to keep our foot on the gas, though. We've got to make sure that we protect creators of intellectual property here, protect small business in our state, and we need to make sure that, very importantly, large-scale mass gathering events are done correctly. I'm excited to see a lot more of those. The proliferation of those around the country is great, but we have to do them safely. And Texas has to be a place where you can be assured that you go to one of these mass gatherings and feel safe and have a more than reasonable expectation of personal safety. but I'm excited about seeing more of those come on. I'm excited about seeing more of those on the books. I'm really excited about getting back to kind of life as normal. It's hard enough. And with the last nearly 2 years, our industry could use a break.
So what kind of change, or have you even seen anything yet? Because I guess most of it happened over the last couple of months. Is the influx of folks from, say, California and elsewhere. Are we getting people from the music industry coming, or is it other industries? I mean, you see some notable things about entertainment industry folks relocating to Texas. But
I will say without reservation, because I do work in economic development at the highest level in the state of Texas, it's everybody. There's yes, multidisciplinary representatives from all creative fields have moved to Texas during the pandemic for whatever reason. Their politics, their sense about personal liberty and freedom, all of that stuff. I'll let them all say their reasons if asked, but the fact is we're seeing a record number of large businesses, small businesses, people who work in any number of ways in the creative industries move to Texas. Some very notable ones, and some people that maybe you've heard of but didn't know they moved. They're here. And what's cool is, a lot of them don't want to just come in and change it to the place they left. We see a lot of that too, and we kind of push back on that in some very important ways. But I see a lot of these folks, and I've met with a lot of them, several of them face to face. They moved here for very specific reasons, and they're not super interested in creating the same environment that they left. So they're interested in getting involved in efforts like ours, like that of the Film Commission, like that of the economic development team as a whole, to recruit colleagues of theirs and to preach to new people moving to the state that the reason we're here, the reason Texas is so attractive is it's not the place we left. The different regulatory environments, the different environments for creation and ownership of small business are just different here. And that's why we're here. Leaving the politics out of it, and letting the people have their own individual thoughts and discussions on that. Texas is a very unique place to do business and to raise a family and to live your life. And we see a lot of people not wanting to disrupt that as much as be a part of it.
So now, speaking from the regulatory environment, are there some things that cities do that inadvertently stifle, the music industry within them, and are there some simple things that they can do that will help to, foster it in their cities?
Well, I think that's the fundamental question that led us to start. It's one of the fundamental questions that led us to start Music Friendly Communities program. The first was that I didn't have a point of contact in any other city besides Austin when I took the job. And as a statewide agency, that's unacceptable. It wasn't acceptable. We've sought to remedy that. That question you just asked is the other important reason. Cities have a lot to do with how small business operates locally, as you know. Sure. The issue is when a city is not even set up to listen to a particular industry vertical locally, what problems can occur? And typically what happens is that a city is not acting in a vindictive way towards a group of professionals. They're acting in a nonsensical way because they have not been able to listen to that group of people. There's no way set up, there's no forum set up for those people to even have a voice to connect to City Hall unless a blow up occurs, unless something really goes off the rails. Typically these, misunderstandings about sound ordinance enforcement, just regular law enforcement around, venues and mass gatherings, locally issued or county issued permitting, any number of things, or just a general feeling of a lack of support and awareness from the city. All of these things can be discussed through a program like the Music Friendly Communities program. And all of these things can be addressed in a way that make the people who participate in the industry feel heard and make the city feel like they're doing a better job of governing industry professionals who live in their city. So those examples are across the board. In Conroe, for example, we helped create, they did this on their own with the help of our framework. By listening to the industry community, they were able to create a new ordinance for creating live music in their downtown square and shared areas that made just a lot more sense to everybody, eliminated some friction, and has created, as a result, far more activations in downtown Conroe. That's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, add that up over 30 communities, you're going to see some real interesting change. And change that's more common sense. You know, what I'm proud of about the program, one of the many things I'm proud of, is that, like I said, we give these communities this framework to listen, and what they hear back is unique as the people giving them the feedback, and then the city is able to create solutions that are local, that make sense locally. And I'm always impressed with what they come up with.
Well, Brendon, I certainly appreciate your time, and it's been incredibly enlightening. And I hope everybody watching this gets as much out of this as I did. I really am just tickled to death that you're on the job, and you know, it's evident that there's a lot going on, and a lot of small, subtle things that nobody realizes that need to be kind of dealt with and done to promote this sort of thing. And I'm glad there's somebody out there as talented as you doing it.
Well, Tim, that means a lot. Let me just say one thing, because you've given me this wonderful forum. The music office is hard at work every day on all of these issues and many more. You know, the fact that we represent, as of 19, when we could actually create an accurate economic impact study, we have to wait for some more time to pass to see what's actually happened during COVID and afterwards. You know, the fact that we know from those numbers that almost $440 million to the tax base is created by music industry professionals, but over $27 billion is created by their activities annually. Over 100,000 of these people go to work every day. This is an important industry in our state. Apart from all of the cultural contributors that it brings, our music puts Texas on the map internationally. It's that important from an economic standpoint as well. We're honored to do the job we do. Like you said, there are 1,000 ancillary jobs we do every day, but this is an incredibly important industry. And if you want to learn more about it, all of our social channels are up and operating daily. You can find us on the website at texasmusicoffice.com. We've got a newsletter that comes out monthly that lets people know exactly what we're doing with their tax dollars, because we're a state agency. We work for Texas, and we're supported by their tax dollars. So we are open at any time to constructive criticism or input that might make us do our job better. You can reach me directly on our website. You can access those socials in that newsletter. We are looking forward to people reaching out because of this interaction today. And I'll finish, Tim, by thanking you again for all the time you took during COVID response to talk people through the SBA's dial-up of that Shuttered Venue Operators Grant program. That was as tough a thing to figure out as anything you'll ever do. Nothing like that on that scale has ever been done by people like you and me in our lifetimes, and hopefully we won't have to mess with it again. But you do that work every day of helping people navigate that system. We thank you for it.
Yeah, I appreciate your words. Yeah, that Shuttered Venue grant was an amazing situation, and I mean, it helped a ton of the folks that I've interfaced with. And in fact, I was doing some calculation, and I guess I probably touched about $20 million worth of that money, and that represented about only 3% of Texas's allotment. So, you know, that, and of course, those are all mostly, you know, a couple of folks that I already had here, but mostly folks you'd sent me, you know.
You had folks from all over coming to you through me. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, but I was glad that, you know, I was able to help them, you know. In a lot of ways, those programs were kind of like, you know, building the airplanes as they were flying them.
Yes, sir.
The SFOG was a little, you know, they had advantages of having seen some of the other programs, but still, I mean, you can't even, I mean, of course, now there's nobody that likes to rag on the government more than me. But nonetheless, I think in totality, when you look at what they had to deal with and from scratch, all in all, as frustrating as it was for a lot of people, and I'm sure you got the calls like I did, dealing with it, they really did a pretty good job. When you look at what they had to do, I mean, it's kind of like
build a program from whole cloth with a gun to their head, and a lot of the kind of money they were with the expectations that were associated with it. I wouldn't have wanted that job.
Yeah.
And, it went is about as well as a government program's ever gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the SVOG was, I mean, they had to bring all brand new people in for that thing. I mean, it's like those guys hit the, the desk, so to speak. And it's like, hey, this thing needs to go out, here in a few weeks. So, here's the parameters, make it happen, and don't screw up, by the way. And don't let anybody who's not supposed to get the money, and make sure everybody gets it. And, I mean, yeah, it's certainly not a time that I hope I will ever have to repeat in my lifetime, for sure, as most anyone else that's experienced it, I'm sure. But yeah, man, thanks a lot. And if there's ever anything that I can do for you, feel free to let me know.
Reach out. You do the same.
Okay. Well, take care and have a good week.
All right, Tim. Same to you.
All right.
Bye-bye.